Paul, let's start with you. What do you make of this?
I've been sort of optimistic about NFC for so long. I feel like it's probably time to become pessimistic about it. It's been one of sort of the next big thing in payments for NFC is this idea that you've sort of near-field communications where you can kind of use your cell phone as a wallet and jump back and forth between whatever the payment device is or the payment terminal is in your device and make quick payments that way. And it's been around for a while. It just never really got picked up. There were a bunch of missing pieces in sort of the chip ecosystem and other stuff. And then we had Square come along and other things which sort of held it up in some ways. And so this is like the fifth or sixth coming of NFC. And I suppose I should be more optimistic about it. I think if anything, it's probably horrible news for Square. But I'm just unconvinced this is going to see rapid adoption for Apple or anyone else.
Ben, how big a deal is it that Apple is getting into this game? A lot of other companies have tried to create a digital wallet business, Google included, for example. PayPal keeps trying. Could Apple really change things?
Well, I definitely think they can. I mean, when you look at the type of customer base that Apple has, and more importantly, the installed base of iPhones in the United States, which is just larger than really any other vendor in terms of vendor shipments for smartphones from a brand, they lead this market, and they have some of the most profitable consumers. In fact, if you look at even things that are successful today, right, and I think, we talked about, the prospects for NFC, but Starbucks actually has a mobile payment app. It's done through their loyalty cards, and their CEO shared earlier this year that they were seeing around approximately upwards of 5 million transactions each month happening on that. In fact, even MasterCard shared a survey that said that now 21% of customers are interested in point-of-sale types of transactions. So I think we're on the cusp of something. I think the smartphone market being mature, and more importantly, Apple being the dominant player in this category, owning the right terms of customers, is the right one to take the leadership position in this. Again, whether it's NFC or something else, we think we're on the cusp of mobile payments now starting to gain traction in the U.S.
Why do you think Apple didn't just do this on its own, forged agreements with banks to become a mobile payments network without having to go through Visa and MasterCard and American Express, which some people might say just adds an extra layer of friction?
Well, it does, but I also think that so many people out there are already used to having a credit card. They have a billing relationship with the merchant in this case, and so for them to just integrate and say, you're at Starbucks, you're at Nordstrom's, you're at Macy's or wherever, and you want to make a payment, and now you just pick which credit card you want to make a payment with. Apple might fit in there and work out some deal where you can use their payment system as well, whether it's iTunes or something like that, similar to the ways that they do in the store. But so many people are used to using credit card transactions, it just eliminates that friction. But the point what you brought up is that where this is, in essence, going to take off or not take off is how well they succeed at eliminating friction for payment, and in this case, using the iPhone as a mechanism to do that.
Paul, what do you think about the fact that it's Apple getting in the game? Seeing that they're the company that never gets anything wrong, do you think we'll see other companies follow suit?
Never gets anything wrong. I'll hold myself back. So no, I think Google sees the same opportunity that Apple does, and obviously Square's wandering around out there, trying to push mobile payments in its own way. So lots of people have been trying. The missing piece has been that last piece of friction that you don't want to go out. I don't want to load my cell phone up with credit card information because I'm worried about security, or it's just a nuisance. And the advantage that Apple has is it's already got all those credit cards in iTunes. And so, Google doesn't have that advantage and others don't have that advantage. So while people might want to follow, it's going to be a lot more complicated because they don't have the, the advantage starting off of having preloaded with all that financial data.
And maybe, Paul, I'll shoot this one to you first. Ben, jump in if you have anything to add. Is the opportunity for Apple here to make money on the payments themselves, or is it by harvesting the data that are generated by all these transactions and doing something else with that, the way that Google does, say, with search?
Yeah, I think it's 1% trying to make money, or even less, 1% trying to make money off the transactions. There's not a lot of money to be made there, at least not directly. 99%, at the other end, where you're trying to collect data about consumer behavior and do a better job of optimizing everything from ads to location-based offers, and try and find ways to sort of straddle that privacy divide and still give people some value, in addition to just making transactions a lot easier. Because right now, there is still a huge nuisance as you drop plastic all over the place inside of stores.
Ben, are people... Sorry. Continue, Ben.
I was just going to add, and I think that there's something for Apple, right? When you look at Apple's strategy, it's about retention, it's about adding value, it's about boosting their ecosystem. So they obviously want to do things on their platform that not only keep existing consumers happy, but possibly, add value to people who might be considering their platform as well. And I think payments is one of those things that when we get into, it's going to have such a convenience level. A lot of our data and other firms show that just that convenience of that will help. So it brings loyalty back to their platform, so they're not worried about losing people to somewhere else or Android or things like that. So just the ecosystem value, I think, is there, whether they make money on it or not. That to me is an important point.
Is the convenience enough to overcome people's security fears? Just look at what happened this weekend, for example, right? iCloud hacked Jennifer Lawrence's nude photos all over the internet. I have to feel that Jennifer Lawrence might be a little leery of using her iPhone as a payments device.
Yeah, and I think there's interesting ways to solve that.
Go ahead, Ben.
There's interesting ways to solve that. I mean, if you look at what Apple's doing with Touch ID, which is actually securing your fingerprint down into the hardware at an encrypted level, I think there's lots of ways that can play out. I mean, they could put more, since they architect their chipsets of their hardware, they can put more into the secure enclave and actually make that much more encrypted down to the hardware level. So again, we're in the early stages of that. I think that's certainly an issue. And again, we have this conversation through the past 10 years that I've been doing this about security, and it always comes up, well, how many people care about security? Do they not? And even credit cards themselves are inherently a somewhat insecure transaction to begin with. So there's lots to do. I think Apple can do some stuff. Touch ID might be the basis of this, but we're early stages, and I think we need a foundation to build upon, and hopefully that's what Apple's going to give us.
Paul, can I ask you, when we talk about the importance of security and maybe people don't realize the significance or how you could get hacked, how do giant celebrities who have security, who have publicists, who have agents and managers and handlers and people not realize maybe they need to be extraordinarily careful and clean their stuff up?
Yeah, I mean, so much of this is behavioral, right? I mean, I think in the end, an awful lot of it's this combination. This isn't to blame the victim at all, but, a lot of it's about people's willingness to put out information that they would rather, that probably shouldn't be out in the cloud. But let's put that aside for a second. It also seems as if there was a problem, with Apple's Find My iPhone feature inside of its iCloud service, where you're allowed to repeatedly query it for passwords, and as a result, it looks like there were some kinds of what are called, euphemistically dictionary attacks made. And I think people just need to be a lot savvier about how trusting they are about data stored in the cloud, whether it's financial, personal, or, well, nude.
Or nude. Well, guess what? Eric Schatzker said there are no nude photos even in his deleted items, so he's A-OK. And he doesn't use Facebook. No embarrassing pictures of Eric to be found. Me too. Yes. All right, thanks. All right, I needed to say that. There you go.
I was waiting for that.
Or guess what? Someone's going to, let me hack that.